all right, I wasn't able to get any of these 23 first, and now my league is on to the class.
Bummer.
They know it's legit, and I wasn't able to get any, so now what?
So we're at the point of the year where I think a lot of people are starting to, and we even talked about this on the first part, was to start looking at your teams, figuring out which of those picks you think are going to be the late ones, which ones are you willing to try to sell or at least shop and see if there's anybody that's moving assets now before the season. They start looking at their team going, I need to sell some players because they're getting old. I don't really think I'm going to contend this year, so I'm going to start to open up how much I'm going to try to go for this year. I'm going to look at my picks and see which ones I'm willing to bet against my team being bad and sell those. So let's say you're on the opposite end of that, though, and you're going, man, I need to blow up my team, or I have some veterans that I really don't want to go into the season with, bad quarterbacks and three running backs like Mixon, Chubb, Henry. Like, I know I don't want those guys all on my team after this year because I'm basically just kind of spinning my wheels and I know I'm going to lose value. So I think that what you have to do is, we've talked about in the past, like, skip the 23 picks because they're going to be hard to get right now. Shoot for the 24 picks, shoot for pivot trades where maybe you're looking at higher end players where you can move for a 24 first plus and you pivot down a tier to another asset. Think of like one of these older running backs where maybe you try to get a 23 first. Nobody will trade for one. You either hold it until the season, or you say, I can get a 24 first and you're also willing to trade me Damian Harris. That's a guy that a year from now could be equal to Josh Jacobs. And you might be able to get a 24 first for somebody like Jacobs or Gibson or something like that. And you get a guy like Harris tacked in. A year from now, the landscape resets. You have a potential viable running back, and you have a guy that if he starts to blow up during the season, there's an injury or something, Damian Harris is a guy you could flip. So you're giving yourself two outs there to accumulate assets.
So let me throw this in there. I just thought of a trade. Would you do Nick Chubb or Tony Pollard in a 24 first?
I think that's the exact type of trade I'm talking about.
Yep.
Now, you can say I don't want to give up Nick Chubb because I want more. But you can also look at that and say you're giving yourself some flexibility. You're netting the first. There is a world where Tony Pollard is worth close to Nick Chubb if everything breaks right during the season.
Sure.
There needs to be a Zeke injury, but I think if Zeke were to go down, you're kind of like, some people would prefer Pollard, or at least put them in the same tier to where he's a tradable asset. So I think it's important. You don't trade Chubb for a 24 first. You don't do one for one. You're not gaining any leverage. You got to get some leverage if you're doing this type of trade and you can't get a 23. You can also pivot off of a high-end running back. If you're a team that's not contending and you have Najee Harris or Breece Hall or Javonte Williams, can you pivot down to Kenneth Walker in a 23 first or Kenneth Walker in a 24 first? Maybe you get another asset thrown in. That's how you have to think about it. If you're talking about a team where you're going, man, I don't want to hold running backs especially, and I want to gain assets, but I can't get like a bunch of 23 first thrown my way. So I know I talked a lot. I'll let Shane answer.
That was good stuff.
It was excellent stuff, Scott. I love when you talk. I just get mesmerized and I drift off and think about 23 picks.
Go ahead.
Everyone and their mom, including me, are selling players like Michael Evans and Tyreek Hill and just generally any wide receiver over the age of 28, 29 years old, Devontae Adams. Pretty much they're willing to trade the first song. Like if you trade someone like a 24 first and a Christian Watson, you might be able to get back something like Mike Evans plus, right? So what I'm thinking is it might be a good time to pull off a trade like that. Trade him one of these rookie wide receivers from this class who we know have a bunch of fatal flaws, right? Even as much as I like Garrett Wilson, I recognize the danger there. Might be time to go ahead and just go, you know what? Let me grab a couple of these old guys, right, that are being sold for cheap right now for a couple of reasons. One, they could have utility on my team this year and they could have utility on my roster next year. But also, even better, maybe my team stinks this year. And when it's buying season, when the points count and the points truly count towards the end of next year, when everybody's balls are to the wall and they have to go, well, do I want a title or do I want a 23 pick? People are going to go, well, I want a title. And they'll be willing, they're going to loosen up on those 23 picks. The grasp on those is going to, and where you might not be able to trade Mike Evans right now for a 23 first. you will be able to do it in season. I can almost guarantee that we're going to be able to trade a lot of the players that we wouldn't even think about right now. Like I said, I wouldn't give you a 23 first for Nick Chubb. I won't give you a 23 first for Mike Evans right now. But talk to me in week 10, I'm 7-3, and I'm going, my 23 first probably isn't going to be that good anyway, and I could win a title, and then next year's free.
I can get Stephon Diggs for this 23 first. Yeah, no problem.
Yeah.
So here's my retort to that. My experience, my vast, playing decades of Dynasty. No, I'm just kidding. Not decades. Running backs are much more likely to fish a 23 first during the season.
For sure.
The reason people don't want to buy running backs right now is because they see 10 to 12 running backs that are all in their 5th, 6th, 7th year on their second contract, and they're all scared to death of picking out the 3 or 4 that are going to run the gauntlet and not get hurt and smash. If you could guarantee that Eckler, Mixon, Chubb, Kamara, any of these guys would be there in week 13 and they'd be scoring 17 plus points per game, everybody in your league would give a 23 first for him. But there's a chance that, like, of that group of 10 to 12, 5 or 6 are going to be casualties before we even get to the playoffs. So people just don't want to buy, and they figure, okay, I have my 23 first. I'm just going to wait. I'm going to wait for 5 or 6 of those guys to go down or be disappointments. Then I'll buy the ones that are smashing, where I go, okay, I'm going to get 6 weeks of stellar production. Those examples that Shane gave, Mike Evans, Tyreek Hill, Devontae Adams, those are ones where if they ever become available for a 23 first, you just take it. Period. Really, you don't even look at your team. Like, you might look at your team and go, oh, I'm 9-1. I don't want to trade Devontae Adams. But he's a receiver. Unless he is a receiver that is just absolutely smashing. We're talking like 19, 20 plus points per game.
Yep.
They're replaceable. But I think the running back, so if I had Evans, Tyreek, Adams, that's where I'd be more likely to do the deal Shane made. Give me a 24 first and Jahan Dotson. I'll give you any of those guys. Pure process.
For sure.
Running backs, though, I'm less likely to do the deal I talked about earlier where I just accept the 24 first for like Austin Eckler or Saquon Barkley. Maybe you give me back Damian Harris or Ramondre Stevenson. That feels like a decent process deal. But if I'm in one of those situations where I have kind of a mix of both of those guys, maybe you do one of those, but you don't sell all your running backs. You want to hope maybe I hit on Barkley or McCaffrey or Kamara or Chubb or Mixon, and they survive until week 10. There will be somebody that'll give you a late 23 first at that point. And that's when I think you capitalize because it's the scarce position. So I think you do have to look at receivers and running backs differently. I mean, how many times have we talked in the past about pivoting down the 2-for-1s on receivers?
Yep.
You can get Christian Watson in a 24 first for Mike Evans. As long as Christian Watson isn't N'Keal Harry or Denzel Mims, which it's a decent chance he could be.
Yeah.
very much in his range.
Out of all of them, he's my biggest fear of being that.
But if he's not that, and he's just Christian Kirk or Michael Gallup or someone like that level impact, you still win that trade most likely in a year. Yes.
Yeah.
Back to the running back discussion, I'm less likely to trade them now. Now, I'll take the risk that obviously there's risk. They're going to get injured. But like Scott said, I got a better chance of selling the running backs in season for a better price than I do now. So I'd probably hold. And understanding, again, you're definitely taking risks. Nick Chubb is 25, whatever. All these running backs that we're talking about are in that 25 to 26, 27-year-old range, where if they do get hurt and they're on your roster, you're pretty much screwed. But I'd still take that chance as opposed to selling them now at a discount.
If a team looks at their pick and they go, this is going to be top 3 or 4, if they're not trading it, the only way they're trading it is if they get CeeDee Lamb or DeAndre Swift or something. They want an asset where they go, hey, this asset's going to be around for 3-5 plus years. Like those teams I've found, if you go to the team that's literally, I mean, we all have those teams in our leagues where you just look at their roster and you go, ugh, their quarterbacks are Sam Darnold and Jared Goff. Like, I'll just take your 23 first. You know what I mean? Like, I'm just going to bet your team's going to suck.
Absolutely.
But those teams typically are not the ones that are out there going, hey, my 23 first is on the block. Who's going to send me the best deal? You do have people that think, oh, I have a stack team. This is what we talked about in the first video. Like, hey, if I have a great team, I'm going to throw my 23 first in the mix. Who wants it? Now, I think all of us are still guilty of, like, if I have a team that I think is going to be a top 3 or top 2 team and I throw my 23 first, I'm looking at that going, okay, I want it valued like there's still some chance that my team falters a little bit. Maybe things go a little bit badly for me. I have a couple injuries and it ends up to 106, 107, right? I still want some insulation if I'm trading away a 23 first, which means I want a guy like Diggs, or I want somebody like, think of a running back that has a couple years left. Like I want somebody like Swift. That's where I'm targeting with my pick. I'm not chasing Mike Evans. I don't care if it's the 112. I don't want Mike Evans for that price.
Nope.
So I think that's the thing, is those are the players people want to sell, are the guys that clearly everybody knows their value curve is going down, that they're selling them based on 1 year production, and then they're going to be 30 years old and nobody's going to want them. But that's where I draw the line. Like, I don't care if I'm the best team and I have Tom Brady. I'm not paying a 112 for Mike Evans.
Let's talk real quick about 23 seconds. So you can't get 23 first. We talked about how, pivoting to 2024 may be a good idea. Should you gobble up seconds if you can't get 23 first?
I wouldn't go out of my way, right? Because I don't want to be stuck in the situation where I'm making 23 second round picks, because they're still second round picks. The hit rate, no matter on how good we think the class is or how good the classes have been in the past, the hit rate is still not great, no matter which way you dice it up for second round picks. Now, I might do it in the hopes that some people will want to then trade me a 2024 first for those seconds. But I don't want to just sell off pieces at a discount again just to capture those second round picks. Like, again, Mike Evans, just for example, I feel like we're beating him to death, but whatever. He's an old man, so we'll just continue to do it. So if someone offers me 23 seconds, I'm going to go, well, no, I'll just hold on. That's fine. You know what I mean? I'd rather see if I can play him into something else other than a couple of random seconds.
In Harris, if I'm a middle of the road team, should I just sell him for a 23 second?
Yes.
Oh, well, yeah. I mean, any running back.
Just sell guys like that. If you're not going to win within the next couple of years, just find out what pieces you could get a 23 second with and just do it.
Well, see, so here's the fascinating thing. The markets for the 23 seconds are even more wild than the 23 first, because basically the measurement of whether a player is worth a 23 second is, can I get a first? If the answer is no, then automatically that player should be worth a second. But you also know there are a ton of players. How many times have we talked about in our chats, on different shows, can you get a first for this guy? Shane, can you get a first, any first for Keenan Allen? Okay. But can you go and buy him for a second?
You can't buy, yeah, exactly. He's one of those.
What is his value? Most people would go, well, I've spammed my league for a 23 first and I got laughed at. I spammed my league for a 24 first and I got declined with no counters. I didn't get laughed at, but I got declined. So then what should I do now? I want to sell him, but it feels like I'm taking a lot less if I just spam for a 23 first or a 23 second. So really his value is somewhere in between. And those are the players where you have to create these deals where you go, I don't care if I'm contending or not. If I'm a non-contender, I would be fine doing a trade where you send me Keenan Allen and a 23 second, and I'll give you a slightly better receiver, like that's the same age, right? Like you can see where you can win that trade because maybe you resell Keenan Allen during the season for that 24 first, and that's where you win the deal. But there's just a lot of players where it's like, Shane, would you sell for a second? Yes. But then nobody will buy for a second because they go, well, why would I spend my second on Damian Harris when there's 20 other running backs I like better that I can't get a first for? I might as well spam on those first. So I think that the second market is just so robust. And Shane's right. Unless you hit on like the 201 through the 204, 205, I think you're going to end up being stuck with the same level player you were getting at 210 this year, next year.
Nope.
So I don't think there's any advantage other than what can I get for those seconds during the season to literally just buy cheap points.
In this class, do you want to make sure you have like a top 9 pick, or if you can get any 23 first, that's something that's going to be very valuable?
I think there will be quarterbacks that are first round picks going at the 112, 201, 202. Think of it this way. There will be 2 or 3 Kenny Pickett's in next year's class, but probably better profiles. But people are going to look at, Jaxon Smith-Njigba, Kayshon Boutte, 3 or 4 running backs, Bryce Young, CJ Stroud. Any quarterback that goes like in the top 10 is going to get pushed up. So if there's a couple other quarterbacks that are like mid first round picks and they're like Kenny Pickett, like Tyler Van Dyke is like Kenny Pickett, no mobility. He's a guy that I don't care how good of a year he has, unless he elevates to be like the 103 in the NFL draft, he is going to be like a 110 to 204. He's another probably Kenny Pickett, maybe with a little more talent, and he's younger. But a guy like that, like you can just, that's why you would hold on to your early seconds and late first if you need quarterbacks, because you're just like, there's probably going to be a guy there that is a placeholder. Doesn't mean it's a stud. It doesn't mean it's going to have much market value other than like, okay, it's a placeholder. But I feel very safe that I'm going to be able to get first round quarterbacks or first round receivers with my late first very comfortably next year. Running backs, obviously, if they're first round running backs or like top 40 picks, they're going to get moved up like Javonte did last year, ETN. They're going to go higher. They're going to go in the top 8 or higher.
Yeah, there's about 100% chance that the first pick off the board is going to be Bijan Robinson, unless something like, I don't know, a meteoroid. It's not a thing. A meteor takes out whatever college town he's in. He's in Texas, right?
Hook him.
And that's just, I mean, there's like 4 or 5 running backs you could probably go, oh, I'll take him. Because although I like the quarterback class, a lot of those quarterbacks have some questions to them. Like Bryce Young is about my size.
How big are you?
I'm about 5'9".
You're about 5'9",
and I outweigh him by about 25 pounds. That's not great. It's not great, Bob. Will Levy's, whatever, however you pronounce it, he couldn't beat out Sean the Big Dog Clifford in Penn State, so he's definitely going to have some questions to him. Spencer Rattler, I don't care how great of a year he has this year, there's still going to be questions because he flamed out last year. There's definitely going to be, if you want to find questions, you'll be able to find questions on these quarterbacks. Not saying that, that they're going to be bad, but you'll definitely be able to talk yourself into why the running back is the safer play.
Well, and I think that's part of the power of the 23 first is that you're not committed to drafting running backs. I mean, I've been Mr. 23 first for more than 2 years now, so I'm sitting on a boatload of them. But you also know how I play running backs and how I approach running backs. So immediately, as soon as they become on my team, they're toxic. They're like, okay, how do I pivot off of Breece Hall?
What have I done?
Breece Hall hasn't even played a game, and I'm already looking at deals where how do I get a 23 first plus for Breece Hall? So we're gonna have to maybe change our mindset a little bit on that. But I do think one other thing that benefits you having 23 first. Let's say we have this group of like old running backs, right? That Shane talked about, the 26, 27, 28-year-olds. Some of those guys are going to survive into next year. Some of them are going to stay healthy. They're going to have another good year. They're going to basically be like where Zeke is this year. You're going to go, there's no way this dude can have another year, or like where Zeke and Derrick Henry are this year, right? There's no way they can survive another year. No way. And then they do. But guess what? I think the market next year on these running backs is going to be extremely soft. If somehow like Joe Mixon escapes another season and is a top 8 running back, everyone is going to be desperate to sell him next year. They will take the 112 for him if you're willing to do it. So I think there's going to be a market to do what you're talking about, Clay, but I don't need to have 4 rookie running backs. I can draft 2 and then maybe trade back with one of my 108, 109, 110, get a guy like Mixon and also get a future second or something like that. And I still win the deal and I still set myself up for the next 1 or 2 years after this draft. But I'm not relying on 4 rookie running backs to hit the ground running. Because we also know, like, if you draft 4 Kenneth Walkers, that doesn't mean you're going to win in 2022. Even though you have 4 top 20 dynasty running backs, doesn't mean you're going to do anything next year. So you want a mix of, you don't want to just go, I want all 23 running backs. You want to have the assets that you can fire next year.
For sure.